You do not belong here." The words cut through the evening air like a blade, sharp and final. Nora froze in the doorway of the grand hall, her hand still gripping the heavy wooden frame. Lady Vivian stood at the center of the room, draped in silver silk that caught the light of 100 candles, her perfect blonde hair cascading over bare shoulders like spun gold. She was everything Nora was not. Beautiful, confident, whole. "I was summoned," Nora managed, her voice barely above a whisper. She hated how small she sounded, how her words seemed to shrink in the presence of someone like Vivian. "By the steward. He said the king requested additional staff for tonight's ceremony." Vivian's laugh was like crystals shattering. "Additional staff. How appropriate. Because that is all you are, is it not? That is all you will ever be." She moved closer, her heels clicking against the marble floor with predatory precision. "A wolfless girl playing at being one of us. Tell me, Nora, do you ever wake up and forget what you are? Do you ever look in the mirror and pretend you see something more than emptiness staring back?" The words found their mark, as they always did. Nora had spent 22 years perfecting the art of making herself small, of accepting the truth everyone else seemed so eager to remind her of. Born without a wolf. Defective. Broken. She should have been used to it by now. Should have developed thicker skin. But some wounds never quite healed. They just learned. To bleed quietly. "I should go," Nora said, stepping back. But Vivienne was faster, her hand shooting out to grip Nora's wrist with surprising strength. "You should do more than go. You should disappear entirely. Tonight is important. The Alpha King returns after 5 years of war, 5 years of keeping our borders safe while we slept soundly in our beds. He deserves to be welcomed by the best our pack has to offer, not by reminders of our failures." She released Nora's wrist with a dismissive flick. "The steward made a mistake. You are not needed here." Nora wanted to argue, wanted to stand her ground, but the years had taught her that fighting only made things worse. She nodded once, quickly, and turned to leave. Her heart hammered in her chest, a rhythm that felt too fast, too loud. As she hurried down the corridor, away from the grand hall and the preparations for tonight's ceremony, she pressed her hand against her left shoulder, feeling the familiar ridge of scar tissue beneath. Her simple cotton dress. The mark. The secret she had carried since childhood. The burden her mother had made her swear to hide. Never let them see. Her mother had whispered on her deathbed 3 years ago, her fingers trembling as they traced the silver marking on Nora's shoulder. "They will not understand. They will fear what they cannot explain. Promise me, Nora. Promise me you will keep it hidden." Nora had promised. She had kept that promise every single day since, binding her shoulder. With careful wraps, wearing high-necked dresses even in summer, avoiding the communal baths, living in constant fear of discovery. The evening air was cool against her flushed cheeks as she stepped outside into the gardens. The ceremony would begin in less than an hour. The entire pack would gather in the central square to welcome their king home, to celebrate the end of the war, to look upon the face of the wolf who had become legend during his time away. Alpha King Caspian Thorn. Even his name carried weight. Nora had been only 17 when he left, too young and too insignificant to have ever met him properly. She remembered seeing him once from a distance, a tall figure with dark hair and darker eyes, moving through the pack with the kind of confidence that came from never having to question your place in the world. She remembered thinking he looked lonely despite being surrounded by people, as if he carried burdens no one else could see. But that was probably just her. Imagination. Projecting her own isolation onto someone who had everything she lacked. The moon was rising, fat and silver in the darkening sky. Not quite full, but close. Full enough to make Nora's skin prickle with awareness, to make the mark on her shoulder pulse with that strange warmth it always carried during the lunar cycle. She had learned to ignore it, to push down the sensations that came with the moon's pull, to pretend she felt nothing when every instinct screamed that something inside her was trying to wake up. "You look troubled." The voice came from behind her, deep and unexpected. Nora spun around, her breath catching. A man stood in the shadows of the garden path, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in dark traveling clothes that marked him as someone who had just arrived. His face was partially obscured by the dim light, but she could see the sharp line of his jaw, the way he held himself with perfect stillness, like a predator deciding whether to strike. "I apologize," Nora said quickly, lowering her eyes in automatic deference. "I did not mean to intrude. I was just leaving." She started to move past him, but his hand lifted, not touching her, just raised in a gesture that somehow stopped her in her tracks. "You are not intruding. These gardens belong to everyone." He stepped forward, and the moonlight caught his features fully. Nora's heart stopped. She knew this face. Older now, harder, marked by years of battle and responsibility, but unmistakable. Alpha King Caspian Thorn stood before her, and she was alone with him in a garden, wearing a plain dress, and no doubt looking like exactly what Vivian had called her. A failure. "Your Majesty," she breathed, dropping into a clumsy curtsy. "I did not recognize you. Please forgive me. I should not be here. I was told I was not needed for the ceremony." She was rambling, her words tumbling over each other in her haste to explain, to apologize, to make herself even smaller than she already felt. "Look at me." The command was quiet but absolute. Nora's head lifted before she could think to disobey, and her eyes met his. The world tilted. She could not explain what happened in that moment, could not put words to the sensation that flooded through her body. It was as if every cell suddenly recognized something, as if a part of her that had been sleeping for her entire life cracked open just enough to whisper a single word. Mine. The thought was so startling, so utterly wrong, that Nora physically stumbled backward. The Alpha King's eyes widened, and she saw something flash across his face. Shock, recognition, something that looked almost like pain. "What is your name?" His voice had changed, rougher now, almost strained. "Nora, Your Majesty." Nora Ashwood. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the mild evening. "I work in the kitchens. I should not have been in the main house. Lady Vivian was right to send me away." Caspian moved closer, and Nora found she could not move, could not look away from his face. He was studying her with an intensity that made her feel exposed, as if he could see through her skin to all the secrets she kept hidden underneath. "Vivian sent you away," he repeated slowly. "Why?" "Because I am wolfless, Your Majesty. I have no place at a ceremony celebrating our pack's strength." The silence that followed was different from any silence Nora had ever experienced. It was not empty or awkward. It was full, weighted with things unsaid, with questions forming and dissolving before they could be spoken. Caspian's jaw tightened, and she saw his hands curl into fists at his sides. "You feel it," he said finally. It was not a question. Nora shook her head, even though they both knew she was lying. "I do not know what you mean, Your Majesty." "Yes, you do." He took another step forward, and Nora's back hit the stone wall of the garden. She was trapped, and yet some part of her did not want to run. Some part of her wanted to stay exactly where she was, wanted him to keep looking at her like she mattered, like she was real. "I have spent 5 years in hell," Caspian said, his voice low and rough. 5 years fighting wars that should never have started, watching good wolves die, making decisions that cost pieces of my soul. I told myself I was doing it for the pack, for our people, for the future. I told myself many things to justify the blood on my hands. He stopped just inches from her. So, close, she could feel the heat radiating from his body, could smell pine and smoke, and something wild that made her head spin. And then I come home, and I walk into a garden, and I find you, and for the first time in 5 years, I feel something other than emptiness. Nora could not breathe, could not think, could not do anything but stare up at him and wonder if this was real, or if she had finally lost her mind. "I am nobody," she whispered. "I am nothing. You are lying." His hand rose, slowly, giving her time to pull away, and his fingers touched her cheek with a gentleness that seemed impossible from someone so powerful. "I can smell the lie on you. I can feel the truth you are hiding. And I need you to trust me enough to tell me what it is." Trust. The word was laughable. Nora had learned early that trust was a luxury she could not afford. But as she stood there, with the Alpha King's hand on her face and his eyes boring into hers with an intensity that felt like it might consume her, she felt the careful walls she had built around herself begin to crack. "I cannot," she said, and hated how her voice broke on the words. "If I tell you, everything will change. Everything will be worse. I cannot." Caspian's thumb brushed across her cheekbone, wiping away a tear she had not realized had fallen. "Everything has already changed, Nora Ashwood. The moment I saw you, the moment our eyes met, my world tilted on its axis. So whatever you are hiding, whatever you think will drive me away. You need to understand something." He leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching hers. "I am not going anywhere." Before Nora could respond, before she could process what he was saying or what it meant, a bell began to toll in the distance. The ceremony bell, the call for the pack to gather. Caspian pulled back, and Nora saw frustration flash across his face. "I have to go," he said. "They are expecting me. But this conversation is not over. Do you understand? This is not over." Nora nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Caspian held her gaze for one more long moment, and then he turned and walked away, his figure disappearing into the shadows. Nora slid down the wall until she was sitting on the cold ground, her whole body trembling. Her shoulder burned where the mark was hidden, pulsing in time with her racing heart. What had just happened? What had he felt? What did he know? The questions spiraled through her mind, but underneath them all was a more terrifying realization. The Alpha King had looked at her and seen something. Not nothing. Not a mistake. Something. And that changed everything. If you are enjoying this story, do not forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. The Grand Hall was a spectacle of light and sound when Nora finally forced herself to return. She had cleaned her face, straightened her dress, and wrapped her composure around herself like armor. The steward had found her in the gardens and insisted that despite Vivian's dismissal, the king himself had requested all available staff be present for the ceremony. Nora did not tell him that she had already met the king, that she had stood in a garden and felt the world shift beneath her feet. Some things were too impossible to speak aloud. The hall was packed with pack members dressed in their finest clothes, all facing the raised platform where the Council of Elders sat in their ceremonial robes. Nora slipped along the back wall, finding a spot near the servants' entrance, where she could see without being seen. The air was electric with anticipation, with the collective energy of hundreds of wolves gathered under one roof. And then he entered. Alpha King Caspian Thorn walked through the main doors, and the entire room fell silent. He had changed into formal attire, a dark jacket with silver threading that caught the light, making him look every inch the warrior king he was. His dark hair was pulled back, revealing the strong lines of his face, the scar that ran from his temple to his jaw, the eyes that had seen too much death. He moved with lethal grace, every step deliberate, every movement speaking of controlled power. Nora watched him ascend the platform, watched as the elders rose to greet him, as the pack erupted into applause and cheers. But she also watched as his eyes scanned the crowd, searching, until they found her in her shadowed corner. The connection was instantaneous, even across the crowded room, even with hundreds of people between them. Nora felt the pull, like a physical thing. Caspian's expression did not change, but she saw his chest rise and fall with a deep breath, saw his hands tighten on the railing of the platform. "My pack," he began, his voice carrying through the hall without effort. "I return to you not as the young prince who left 5 years ago, but as a king forged in fire and blood. The war is over. Our borders are secure, and I stand before you tonight, with gratitude for those who fought beside me and grief for those we lost along the way." The speech was beautiful, carefully crafted, full of the right words about unity and strength and the future. But Nora barely heard it. All she could focus on was the way Caspian's eyes kept finding hers, the way he seemed to be speaking directly to her, even as he addressed the entire pack. When he finished, the applause was thunderous. And then Elder Whitmore stood, raising his hands for silence. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice thin with age but strong with authority, "we celebrate not only your return, but also the future you will build for us. It is time to think of succession, of legacy, of securing the royal line." He gestured to the side of the platform, where Lady Vivian stood with her father, Councillor Blackwood. "We have watched Lady Vivian grow into a wolf of exceptional grace and strength. She has proven herself worthy time and again. And so, with the full support of the Council, we propose that the formal courtship begin immediately, so that by the next full moon, we might celebrate not only a king's return, but a king's chosen queen." Nora felt as if the floor had dropped out from beneath her. Of course. Of course this was always the plan. She was a fool to think that one conversation in a garden could mean anything, could change anything. Caspian was a king. Vivian was perfect. And Nora was nobody. She watched Vivian ascend the platform, watched as the beautiful blonde woman moved to stand beside Caspian with the ease of someone who had always known this would be her place. Vivian smiled at the crowd, the picture of elegant confidence. But then Nora saw her lean close to Caspian, saw her lips move in words meant only for him. Whatever she said made Caspian's jaw tighten, made his eyes flash with something dark. "The council does me great honor," Caspian said finally, his voice carefully neutral. "However, I must respectfully decline this proposal. My mate bond has not yet been revealed to me, and I will not enter into a political union while the possibility of a true mate exists." The gasps that rippled through the crowd were like waves crashing against rocks. Elder Whitmore's face paled, and Councillor Blackwood looked as if he had been struck. Vivian's perfect smile froze, becoming something brittle and dangerous. "Your Majesty," Elder Whitmore said carefully, "you have been of age for a mate bond for over a decade. If it had not revealed itself by now, surely we must accept that you are one of the rare few destined to choose rather than be chosen. The pack needs stability. The royal line needs securing." "The pack has stability," Caspian replied, and there was steel in his voice now. "I have given 5 years of my life to ensure it, and I will give whatever is required in the future. But I will not give this. Not yet. Not until I am certain." His eyes found Nora's again, and this time there was no mistaking the intensity of his gaze, the weight of meaning behind it. Nora's heart was racing so fast she thought it might burst from her chest. He was looking at her. In a room full of people, with Vivian standing beside him, with the entire council watching, he was looking at her. What do you think will happen next? Leave your predictions in the comments below. The ceremony dissolved into uncomfortable murmuring. Vivian descended from the platform with rigid dignity, but Nora saw the fury in her eyes, the way her perfect composure was a mask over something venomous. Councillor Blackwood followed his daughter, his expression dark with anger. Nora knew she needed to leave, needed to disappear before anyone connected Caspian's refusal to his earlier conversation with her. But as she turned to slip away, a hand caught her elbow. Not so fast. It was Marcus, the head of the king's guard, a mountain of a man with scars that told stories of countless battles. The king wants to see you. Now. Terror. And something else, something that felt dangerously like hope, warred in Nora's chest. I think there has been a mistake, she said. I'm just a kitchen worker. The king would not. The king was very specific, Marcus interrupted, his tone making it clear this was not a request. He wants to see Nora Ashwood in his private study. Immediately. Nora's legs felt weak as Marcus led her through the winding corridors of the palace, away from the grand hall and into the private wings where only the royal family and highest-ranking wolves were permitted. Other servants stared as she passed, their expressions ranging from curiosity to outright shock. The study was smaller than Nora expected, lined with books and maps, dominated by a large desk covered in papers. A fire crackled in the hearth, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Caspian stood with his back to the door, staring into the flames, still wearing the formal jacket, but looking somehow more human now, more real. "Leave us," said quietly. Marcus hesitated for only a moment before obeying, closing the door behind him with a soft click. The silence stretched between them, thick and heavy. Nora stood frozen near the door, her hands clasped in front of her, waiting. Finally, Caspian turned to face her. The firelight caught the planes of his face, making him look like something carved from stone and shadow. "Do you know what a mate bond feels like?" he asked. Nora shook her head. "I have never had a wolf, Your Majesty. I would not know." "It feels like recognition," he continued, as if she had not spoken. "Like seeing someone for the first time and remembering them all at once. Like your soul has been searching for something it did not know was missing, and suddenly there it is, standing in front of you. Like coming home after being lost for your entire life." He moved closer, and Nora found herself pressing back against the door. "I have been told about mate bonds since I was a child. Told they were rare. Special. Gifts from the moon goddess herself. Told that most wolves never experience them, that most of us have to choose our partners based on compatibility and logic and political advantage. I accepted that. I thought I had accepted that." He stopped just in front of her, so close she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "And then I saw you in that garden, and every story I had ever been told about mate bonds suddenly made sense. Because I felt it, Nora. I felt that recognition down to my bones. I felt my wolf wake up for the first time in 5 years and howl with joy. I felt my entire world realign around you." Nora was shaking her head, tears streaming down her face. "That is not possible. I am wolfless. I cannot be anyone's mate, let alone yours. You are a king. I am nothing." "Stop saying that," Caspian growled, and for the first time she heard his wolf in his voice, that primal edge that spoke of power barely contained. "Stop calling yourself nothing. You are not nothing. To me. You could never be nothing to me." His hands came up to cup her face, and Nora felt the gentleness in his touch, the way he held her as if she were something precious. "Tell me what you are hiding," he said softly. "Tell me why you think you are broken. Let me see the truth." Nora closed her eyes, the battle raging inside her. Every instinct screamed at her to keep the secret, to protect herself, to run before this impossible situation destroyed her. But there was something in Caspian's voice, in the way he touched her, in the certainty with which he spoke about mate bonds and destiny. Something that made her want to be brave for the first time in her life. "I need you to promise me something first," she whispered. "Anything. Promise me that when you see what I am about to show you, if you decide I am dangerous, if you decide I am a threat, you will make it quick. You will not let them torture me or lock me away. You will just end it." Caspian's hands tightened on her face, and she opened her eyes to see horror written across his features. "Nora, what are you talking about? I would never hurt you. I could never hurt you. "You do not know what I am," she said. "You do not know what I carry." She reached up with trembling fingers and began to unbutton the high collar of her dress. Caspian's eyes widened, and he started to step back, to give her space. But she shook her head. "Stay," she said. "I need you to see." She pulled the fabric down over her left shoulder, revealing the binding she had wrapped that morning. With careful movements, she unwound it, letting the cloth fall away. The mark was exactly as it had always been. A silver crescent moon surrounded by intricate patterns that looked like ancient script, spanning from her shoulder blade to her collarbone. But as the moonlight from the window touched it, as Caspian's eyes fell upon it, something changed. The mark began to glow, not brightly, not enough to light the room, but with a soft luminescence that seemed to pulse in time with her heartbeat. Silver light traced the patterns, making them dance and shift across her skin. Caspian stumbled backward, his hand flying to his own chest as if he had been struck. "That is not possible," he breathed. "That mark. That is, oh gods. Nora, do you know what that is?" She shook her head, pulling her dress back up to cover the mark, though the glow was fading now that she had hidden it again. "My mother told me to never show anyone. She said they would not understand, that they would fear it. I have hidden it my entire life." Caspian ran both hands through his hair, pacing the length of the study like a caged animal. "The silver mark. The mark of the first. It is legend. A story from the old times, before the packs divided, when all wolves were one under the moon goddess. It is said that she marked her chosen ones, her guardians, with that symbol. That those who bore it carried the blood of the first wolves, the original, children of the moon." He spun to face her, and Nora saw something like wonder in his eyes, mixed with disbelief and a hunger that made her breath catch. There have not been any recorded silver marks in over 300 years. Most scholars think they were myth, propaganda created by the ancient kings to legitimize their rule. But you have been carrying one of the most sacred marks in our history, hidden beneath your clothes. And you have no wolf? None, Nora confirmed. I have never shifted, never felt the presence of a wolf inside me. I am completely human except for that mark. No, Caspian said firmly. You are not human. You cannot be human and carry that mark, which means something is suppressing your wolf, keeping it locked away. But why? And how? He moved back to her, his hands reaching for her shoulders, then pulling back as if afraid to touch her. We need to figure this out. We need to understand what is happening to you. But first, I need you to know something. He took her hands in his, and Nora felt the warmth of his touch spread through her entire body. That mark confirms what I already knew in my soul. You are my mate, Nora Ashwood. The moon goddess herself has marked you as mine, and I will protect you with my last breath. Do you understand? Whatever is coming, whatever happens next, you are not alone anymore. Nora wanted to believe him, wanted to let herself fall into the safety he offered, but she had learned too well that safety was an illusion, that promises could be broken, that hope was the most dangerous thing of all. Vivienne will come for me, she said quietly. The council will not accept this. They will say I am lying, that the mark is fake, that I am trying to manipulate you. They will destroy me, and there is nothing you can do to stop them without tearing the pack apart. Caspian's jaw set in a line so hard it could have been carved from granite. Then let them try. Let them come for you. They will learn very quickly what it means to threaten what belongs to me. The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it made something deep inside Nora's chest uncoil, made her feel seen and valued in a way she never had before. But before either of them could say anything more, the study door burst open. Marcus stood there, his face grim. Your Majesty, we have a situation. Lady Vivienne has called an emergency council meeting. She is demanding an audience with you regarding what she calls a breach of protocol and an insult to the council's authority. And she specifically requested that Nora Ashwood be brought before them for questioning. Caspian's eyes flashed gold, his wolf rising to the surface. On what grounds? She claims Ashwood has been practicing forbidden magic, that she used enchantments to influence your judgment during the ceremony. She has 3 witnesses who claim to have seen Ashwood speaking incantations in the gardens before your arrival. Marcus glanced at Nora with something that might have been pity. I am sorry, Nora, but council law states that any wolf accused of dark magic must submit to questioning. Even the king cannot refuse that. The trap had been sprung. Vivian had wasted no time, had moved with the precision of someone who had been planning this for far longer than just tonight. Nora felt the walls closing in, felt the familiar weight of inevitability settling over her shoulders. It is all right, she said softly. Even though it was not all right, even though everything was falling apart. I will go. I will answer their questions. Like hell you will, Caspian snarled. Not without me. If they want to question my mate, they will do it with me present, and they will do it very, very carefully. He turned to Marcus. Gather my personal guard, full formation, and send word to the council that I will attend their meeting, but on my terms. They will wait until I am ready. Marcus nodded and disappeared. Caspian pulled Nora close, his arms wrapping around her with fierce protectiveness. Listen to me, he said into her hair. Do not let them see you afraid. Do not let them make you feel small. You carry the mark of the moon goddess herself. You are more powerful than any of them could dream of being, even if that power is still sleeping. Hold on to that truth, and hold on to me. Nora buried her face in his chest, breathing in his scent, trying to memorize the feeling of safety she found in his arms. Because she knew, with a certainty that made her heart ache, that this moment could not last. The council chamber was colder than the study, all stone and shadows, with torches lining the walls casting flickering light over the assembled elders. They sat in a semicircle, 7 ancient wolves who had guided the pack for decades, their faces grave and unreadable. Vivian stood to one side with her father, her expression composed, but her eyes glittering with triumph. Nora entered with Caspian's, hand on her lower back, with his guards flanking them. She had never been in this room before, had never imagined she would stand before the council. Kitchen workers did not warrant their attention. Until now. Elder Whitmore rose, his aged face drawn with concern. Your Majesty, these accusations are serious. If Lady Vivian is correct, if this woman has been using forbidden magic to manipulate your will, then we must act swiftly to protect you and the pack. Nora Ashwood is my mate, Caspian Soares said flatly. Whatever accusations Vivian has manufactured are irrelevant in the face of that truth. The mate bond is sacred, recognized by our laws and our traditions. No one, not even the council, can challenge it. Mate bond? Councillor Blackwood stepped forward, his voice dripping with disdain. Your Majesty, with all due respect, this woman is wolfless. She cannot possibly be your mate. The bond requires 2 wolves to recognize each other. What you are describing is infatuation, perhaps. Even enchantment. But it is certainly not a mate bond. I know what I feel, Caspian growled. My wolf knows, and that is enough. Is it? Vivian's voice was silk over steel. Because from where I stand, Your Majesty, it looks like you met this woman for the first time tonight. Spent less than an hour in her presence, and suddenly you are willing to throw away political alliances and insult the council, all for someone with no rank, no wolf, and no value to the pack. If that is not magic, then what is it? The logic was poisonous, and Nora could see it working on the elders, could see doubt creeping into their expressions. She wanted to speak, to defend herself, but what could she say? That she had felt something too. that the Alpha King's attention made her feel things she had never felt before. That somewhere deep inside, something was waking up. It all sounded like fantasy, like the desperate dreams of a nobody trying to be somebody. "I want to see proof," Elder Whitmore said. "Finally, if there is truly a mate bond, there will be physical evidence. A mark, a change, something tangible. Lady Vivian has witnesses who claim they saw this woman performing rituals in the garden. Ashwood, do you have any mark of the mate bond? Any sign that the moon goddess has blessed this union? If you want to see how this story ends, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on." Nora's heart stopped. This was it. The moment everything changed. She could stay silent, could hide the truth as she always had, and they would find her guilty of magic she had never practiced. Or she could show them the mark, could expose the secret she had guarded her entire life, and face whatever consequences came. She looked at Caspian, saw the tension in his jaw, the way his whole body was coiled to protect her. He had called her his mate, had stood before the council and claimed her, had offered her safety when she had none. Maybe it was time to be brave. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. "I have a mark," she said quietly. The chamber fell silent. "Show us," Elder Whitmore commanded. Nora's hands shook as she reached for the buttons of her dress. She heard Vivian's sharp intake of breath, saw Counselor Blackwood lean forward with hungry interest. Caspian moved closer to her, positioning himself so that he partially blocked the council's view, so that she had some measure of privacy even in this most public of moments. She unwound the binding, her fingers clumsy with nerves, and then she pulled the fabric aside, revealing her shoulder to the council. The mark was there, silver and intricate, but it was not glowing. Not yet. In the torchlight, it looked like nothing more than an unusually detailed scar, barely visible against her pale skin. Nora felt her stomach drop. Of course it would not glow now, when she needed it most. Of course her one piece of proof would fail her. "I see nothing but scar tissue," Counselor Blackwood said with satisfaction. "Is this your evidence? A mark that could have been made by any blade or burn?" "It is not a scar," Nora said desperately. "It is a birthmark. It glows under moonlight. I swear it." "How convenient," Vivian murmured. "A magic mark that only appears under certain conditions. Tell me, Ashwood, did you learn that particular trick from the same place you learned your enchantments?" "I have never practiced magic," Nora said, her voice rising. "I have never done anything but try to survive. I did not ask for this mark. I did not ask for any of this." "Enough," Caspian said, his voice cutting through the growing chaos. "Elder Whitmore, the full moon rises in 3 nights. The festival of the Lua de Sangue will take place as scheduled. And during that festival, under the light of the moon at its strongest, Nora will reveal her mark before the entire pack. You will see the truth with your own eyes. And then this nonsense ends. It was a gamble, and they all knew it. The festival of the Lua de Sangue was the most important ceremony of the year, when the pack gathered under the blood moon to celebrate their connection to the moon goddess. It was also when the most powerful magic flowed, when dormant gifts sometimes awakened, when the veil between the mortal world and the divine was at its thinnest. If Nora's mark was truly blessed, it would be undeniable under that moon. But if it was not, if it was nothing more than a strange scar, she would be exposed as a fraud in front of everyone. Elder Whitmore considered this, his ancient eyes moving between Caspian and Nora. "Very well," he said finally. "We will wait until the festival. But until then, Ashwood will be confined to the palace under guard. She will have no contact with anyone outside of supervised visits, and she will submit to daily examinations by our healers to ensure she carries no forbidden magic in her blood." "Absolutely not," Caspian started. But Nora touched his arm, stopping him. "I agree," she said. "I have nothing to hide. I will submit to your examinations, your guards, whatever you require, because in 3 nights, you will all see the truth." Vivian's smile was razor sharp. "I look forward to it." The following 3 days were the longest of Nora's life. She was moved to a small room in the guest wing, with guards stationed outside her door at all hours. 3 times a day, healers came to examine her, drawing blood, testing her reflexes, asking endless questions about her childhood, her mother, any exposure she might have had to magic users or forbidden texts. She answered everything truthfully, because the truth was, she had nothing to hide. She was exactly what she appeared to be. A wolfless girl with a mark she did not understand, and a destiny she had never asked for. Caspian visited her each evening, bringing her food, sitting with her in the small room, talking about everything and nothing. He told her about the war, about the wolves he had lost, about the weight of command and the loneliness of leadership. She told him about growing up without a wolf, about the isolation, about her mother's final words. They were learning each other, piece by piece, building something fragile and precious between them. "Are you afraid?" he asked her on the second night, his hand covering hers on the small table. "Terrified," she admitted. "What if the mark does not glow? What if I was wrong about everything?" "You are not wrong," Caspian said with absolute certainty. "I feel the bond between us growing stronger every moment. My wolf is settled in a way he has never been, as if he has finally found what he has been searching for. Whatever happens at the festival, that does not change." But Nora could see the worry in his eyes, could sense the tension building throughout the palace. The festival of the Lua de Sangue was approaching, and with it, her moment of truth. On the 3rd day, as the sun began to set and the blood moon prepared to rise, Vivian came to visit. She dismissed the guards with a wave of her hand, her rank giving her the authority to demand privacy. Nora stood from her seat by the window, her body tense. "Come to gloat?" she asked. Vivian laughed, a cold sound that held no humor. "Gloat? No, my dear. I have come to offer you a kindness, a way out of the disaster you have created for yourself." She moved around the room like a predator circling prey. "You cannot win this, Nora. Even if your mark does glow, even if it is real. Do you truly think the council will accept you as queen? Do you think the pack will bow to a wolfless nobody who spent her life scrubbing floors?" "The mate bond," Nora started, "is not enough," Vivian interrupted. "Love is not enough. Destiny is not enough. Power is what matters. Political alliances, the strength to lead. And you have none of those things." She stopped in front of Nora, her beautiful face hard. "But I do. I have spent my entire life preparing to stand beside the Alpha King. I have the training, the bloodline, the connections to hold this pack together. And I will not let you take that from me, because of some mystical mark and a king's infatuation." "What do you want?" Nora asked quietly. "I want you to leave. Tonight, before the festival. I will make sure the guards look the other way. I will give you money, enough to start a new life far from here. You can disappear, and in time, Caspian will forget you. He will do his duty and choose a proper mate. The pack will be stable. Everyone wins." "Everyone except me," Nora said. "Everyone except Caspian." "Caspian is a king," Vivian snapped. "He does not have the luxury of choosing his own happiness. And neither do you. Stay, and I will destroy you. Not tonight, not in some dramatic confrontation, but slowly, systematically, until there is nothing left of you but broken pieces. I have the resources, the influence, and the motivation. You have nothing but a mark and a fairy tale." Nora felt the truth of those. Words like a blade to the heart. Because Vivian was right. Even if the mark glowed, even if Caspian loved her, what kind of life would she have? Fighting every day, watching her back, knowing that half the pack thought she was a fraud and the other half resented her for disrupting their political plans. "I will think about it," she said finally. Vivian smiled. "Smart girl. The festival begins at midnight. You have until then to make the right choice." She swept out of the room, leaving Nora alone with her thoughts. The hours crawled by. Nora sat by the window, watching the moon rise, watching it grow larger and redder as it climbed the sky. The blood moon, the most powerful moon of the year. She thought about running, thought about taking Vivian's offer and disappearing into the night. It would be easier, safer. She would not have to face the council, would not have to risk public humiliation, would not have to watch Caspian be forced to choose between her and his pack. But then, she thought about the way Caspian looked at her, like she mattered, like she was worth fighting for. She thought about the mark on her shoulder, the legacy her mother had made her hide. She thought about spending 22 years making herself small, accepting other people's definitions of her worth. Maybe it was time to stop running. Maybe it was time to stand and face whatever came, even if it destroyed her. When the guards came to escort her to the festival grounds at midnight, Nora was ready. The clearing was massive, ringed by ancient trees, with a raised stone platform at its center. The entire pack had gathered, hundreds of wolves standing in concentric circles around the platform, their faces painted with ceremonial markings, their eyes reflecting the red light of the blood moon. Nora walked through the crowd, feeling their stares, hearing their whispers. The guards led her to the platform, where the council waited. Caspian stood to one side, dressed in ceremonial robes of silver and black, his face carved from stone. When his eyes met hers, she saw fury and fear and something that looked like pride. "Nora Ashwood," Elder Whitmore's voice rang out over the crowd. "You stand before the pack accused of practicing forbidden magic and deceiving the Alpha King. You claim to bear a mark blessed by the moon goddess herself. Under the light of the blood moon, with all gathered as witness, you will now reveal this mark, and the moon goddess will judge the truth of your words." Nora climbed the steps to the platform, her legs steady, despite the terror coursing through her veins. She had made her choice. Now she would live with the consequences. She stood at the center of the platform, facing the crowd, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes upon her. Slowly, deliberately, she reached for the buttons of her dress. The crowd was utterly silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Nora pulled the fabric aside, revealing her shoulder, revealing the mark. For one terrible moment, nothing happened. The mark lay against her skin, silver lines barely visible in the red moonlight. She heard Vivian's satisfied laugh, heard the murmurs beginning to ripple through the crowd, and then the blood moon broke through the last wisps of cloud, and its full light fell upon Nora's skin. The mark ignited. Not with the soft glow Caspian had seen in his study, but with a brilliance that seemed to pull light from the moon itself and concentrate it in the patterns on her shoulder. Silver fire traced the ancient script, making the crescent moon at the center shine like a beacon. The light spread, crawling across her skin, illuminating her from within. And as it did, Nora felt something inside her shatter. It was not painful. It was not frightening. It was like a dam breaking, like chains falling away, like a door that had been locked her entire life suddenly flying open. Her wolf surged forward with a force that drove Nora to her knees. She gasped as she felt it fully for the first time, felt the wild, primal power that had been sleeping inside her, felt 22 years of suppression give way all at once. The shift happened before she could think, before she could process what was occurring. her body contorted, bones realigning, muscles reforming, and then she was standing on 4 legs instead of 2. But the wolf that emerged was nothing like any wolf the pack had ever seen. She was massive, easily twice the size of a normal female wolf, with fur that gleamed silver white under the moon. Her eyes, when she lifted them to face the crowd, glowed with the same ethereal light as the mark. The crowd erupted. Gasps and cries of shock and awe rippled through the gathered wolves. On the platform, the elders had risen to their feet, their faces stunned. Vivian had gone white as snow, her perfect composure shattered. And Caspian. Caspian shifted in an instant, his own wolf emerging in a blur of dark fur and lethal grace. He was enormous, an alpha king in every sense, but when he moved to Nora's side, even his size seemed diminished by her presence. His dark wolf pressed against her silver one, and Nora felt the mate bond snap into place with a force that shook her to her core. It was not subtle or gentle. It was absolute. A connection that bound them together on every level, physical, emotional, spiritual. She could feel his emotions as if they were her own, could sense his wolf recognizing hers with joy so profound it made her want to howl. Elder Whitmore's voice, when he finally found it, shook with emotion. The silver wolf. The legends were true. The moon goddess has returned her champion to us. He dropped to one knee, and one by one, the other elders followed. Then the guards. Then the crowd. Hundreds of wolves bowing before the platform, before Nora, before the proof that she was exactly what Caspian had claimed, what the mate bond had revealed. Nora shifted back, her body reforming into human shape. Someone had draped a cloak over her shoulders, and she pulled it around herself with trembling hands. Caspian shifted beside her, and immediately he was there, his arms around her, holding her upright as the enormity of what had just happened crashed over her. "I told you," he whispered into her hair. "I told you that you were not nothing. You are everything, Nora. Everything the pack needs. Everything I need." Nora clung to him, tears streaming down her face. But they were not tears of fear anymore. They were tears of relief, of release, of finally being seen for what she truly was. Elder Whitmore rose, his old face transformed with wonder. "The mate bond is confirmed. The moon goddess has chosen. Nora Ashwood, born of the silver mark, is the true mate of our Alpha King. And by our most sacred laws, she will be our Queen Luna." The crowd erupted into cheers, into howls that echoed through the forest, but Nora barely heard them. All she could focus on was Caspian, on the way he looked at her as if she had hung the moon itself, on the bond between them that sang with rightness. Vivian fled the clearing, her father close behind, their political ambitions crumbling to dust. But Nora felt no satisfaction in their defeat, only a bone-deep exhaustion and a peace she had never known. The celebrations lasted until dawn. The pack feast, danced, rejoiced in the revelation of their Queen Luna and the blessing of the moon goddess. Caspian never left Nora's side, his hand constantly finding hers, his presence a steady anchor as she navigated this new reality. When the sun finally rose and the blood moon set, when the pack began to disperse and return to their homes, Caspian led Nora back to the palace. Not to the small guest room where she had been confined, but to the royal chambers, to rooms that would now be hers as much as his. "How are you feeling?" he asked as they stood in his study, the same room where he had first seen her mark. "Overwhelmed," she admitted. "Terrified. Like I am. Living someone else's life." "You are living your own life," Caspian said gently. "For the first time, you are living the life you were always meant to have, and I will be beside you every step of the way." He pulled her close, and Nora went willingly, burying her face in his chest, breathing in his scent. "I do not know how to be a queen," she whispered. I do not know how to lead, how to command respect, how to navigate pack politics. You will learn, Caspian said, and you will not be alone. I will teach you everything I know. The council will guide you. The pack will support you, because they have seen what I saw from the first moment, that you are strong and brave and worthy of standing beside me. He tilted her face up, his thumb brushing across her cheek. But first, I want to ask you something. Do you accept this bond? Do you choose me? Not because of destiny or politics or the moon goddess, but because you want to? Because in all the chaos and impossibility of these last few days, have you felt what I have felt? That we fit together in a way that makes everything else make sense? Nora looked up at him, at this king who had claimed her when she was nobody, who had protected her against his own counsel, who had believed in her when she could not believe in herself. Yes, she said simply, I choose you. I choose this. I choose us. Caspian's kiss was gentle at first, tentative, as if he still could not quite believe she was real. But when Nora kissed him back, when she pressed closer and let him feel the truth of her words, gentleness gave way to hunger. The claiming that followed was not like anything Nora had imagined. It was fierce and tender, overwhelming and perfect, a physical manifestation of the bond that already existed between them. And when Caspian marked her, his teeth sinking into the junction of her neck and shoulder, completing the mate bond in the most primal way, Nora felt her wolf rise up in answer, felt the connection between them become unbreakable. Afterward, they lay tangled together in his massive bed, the morning light streaming through the windows, and for the first time in her life, Nora felt complete. What happens now? She asked, her fingers tracing idle patterns on his chest. Now we prepare you for your coronation, Caspian said. Now we strengthen the pack and deal with whatever political fallout comes from Vivian's family. Now we build the future together. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. But first we rest. You have been through more in 3 days than most wolves experience in a lifetime. You are allowed to take a moment to just breathe. Nora smiled, snuggling closer to him. I like that plan. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Nora trained with the pack warriors, learning to control her newfound wolf, discovering that her strength and speed far exceeded even Caspian's. She studied with the elders, learning pack history and law, understanding the responsibilities she would shoulder as Queen Luna, and she navigated the complex social dynamics of the pack, winning over skeptics with her genuine care for their welfare and her willingness to work harder than anyone to prove herself worthy of her position. Vivian and her father left the territory, relocating to a distant pack where their influence was still strong. Nora did not miss them, though she understood the danger they still represented. Political enemies did not simply disappear. They waited for opportunities. But she also understood that she was no longer the frightened girl who could be intimidated into silence. She was the Silver Wolf, the Moon Goddess's champion, the Alpha King's mate, and she would protect what was hers with the same ferocity Caspian showed in protecting her. The coronation took place 2 months after the festival of the Lua de Sangue. The entire pack gathered once again, but this time it was to celebrate rather than judge. Nora stood before them in ceremonial robes of silver and white, her mark clearly visible, no longer hidden, but displayed proudly. Caspian placed the Luna crown upon her head, a delicate circlet of silver inlaid with moonstones that caught the light and seemed to glow with their own inner fire. I present to you, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the clearing, Nora Ashwood Thorne, Silver Wolf, Queen Luna of the United Packs, my mate, my partner, my equal in all things. The pack's howls of approval were deafening. Nora looked out at the sea of faces, at wolves who had once whispered about her weakness now looking at her with respect and loyalty, and felt tears sting her eyes. But they were good tears. Healing tears. In her acceptance speech, Nora spoke not of power or politics, but of belonging. "I know what it is like to feel broken," she said. "To believe you are less than others. To hide parts of yourself out of fear. To wonder if you will ever find your place in the world. But I stand before you today as proof that our perceived weaknesses can be our greatest strengths. That destiny finds us even when we are not looking for it. And that belonging is not about being perfect. It is about being real." The celebration lasted 3 days, and on the final night, as Nora and Caspian stood alone on the palace balcony, looking out over their territory, Caspian pulled her close. "Do you remember that first night in the garden?" he asked. "When you were trying to leave and I stopped you?" "I remember," Nora said softly. "I remember thinking I had never felt more seen and more terrified at the same time." "I knew then," Caspian said. "The moment I saw you, I knew my life had changed. I just did not know how completely, how thoroughly you would transform everything." He turned her to face him, his hands cupping her face with the same gentleness he had shown that first night. "I love you, Nora. Not because of your mark or your wolf or what you represent to the pack. I love you because of who you are. The bravery you showed in revealing your truth. The kindness you show to everyone, even those who have hurt you. The way you refuse to let the past define your future. You are extraordinary, and I am honored to stand beside you." Nora smiled, her heart so full she thought it might burst. "I love you too. You saw me when I was invisible. You believed in me when I had given up on myself. You gave me a reason to stop hiding and start living." Their kiss was soft and sweet, a promise of all the tomorrows they would share. Below them, the pack celebrated, their howls rising into the night sky. And above them, the moon shone silver and bright, as if the moon goddess herself was smiling down on the love she had blessed. In the months and years that followed, Nora and Caspian would face many challenges. Political threats from rival packs who saw the silver wolf as either a blessing to be claimed or a danger to be eliminated. Internal struggles as they worked to modernize pack traditions, while honoring the past. The daily difficulties of leadership and the weight of responsibility that came with their crowns. But they faced it all together, their bond growing stronger with each challenge overcome. Nora discovered that her silver wolf form had abilities beyond physical strength. She could heal with a touch, could sense threats to the pack before they materialized, could communicate with the moon goddess in dreams that guided her decisions. She became not just a Queen Luna, but a beacon of hope for the entire werewolf nation, proof that the old magic was not dead, that the moon goddess still watched over her children. And Caspian, who had spent 5 years at war feeling disconnected from everything, found home in Nora's arms, found peace in her presence, found purpose in building a future where no one would have to hide their true nature, where strength was measured not by dominance, but by the courage to be vulnerable. They had 3 children over the years, each born under a full moon, each carrying some echo of their mother's silver mark. And they raised them to be strong but kind, powerful but compassionate, leaders who understood that true strength came from protecting those who could not protect themselves. On their 10th anniversary, as they stood once again on the palace balcony under a full moon, Nora leaned against Caspian and sighed with contentment. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" she asked. "If you had not walked into that garden that night? If I had run instead of staying?" Caspian wrapped his arms around her, pulling her back against his chest. "I think about it sometimes," he admitted. "And then I remind myself that it was never really a choice. We were always meant to find each other. The moon goddess does not make mistakes." "No," Nora agreed, looking up at the silver light that had guided her destiny. "She does not. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who loves epic romance. Tell me in the comments, Did you see this ending coming? The wind whispered through the trees, carrying the sounds of the pack settling in for the night, the sounds of a community at peace, a family whole and strong. And in the palace, the silver wolf and her king held each other close, grateful for the journey that had brought them together, excited for all the adventures still to come. Because love, true love, the kind blessed by the moon goddess herself, was not the end of the story. It was just the beginning. And their story, the story of the silver wolf who learned to shine, and the alpha king who helped her find her light, would be told for generations to come. A reminder that sometimes the most broken among us carry the most beautiful magic. That sometimes what we think makes us weak is actually what makes us extraordinary. And that sometimes the love we find in the most unexpected places is the love that changes everything.